Welcome to EDU World Space.
Once again, welcome to a new problem. This time we have a truck and a sports car. So the sports car, we're given that the sports car is moving in the towards the left eastward. So that means it has a negative velocity. The mass of the sports car happens to be given as 1050 kilograms, and it's moving with an initial velocity um, towards the left, which is negative 15 meters per second. That's the sports car. And then we also have a truck. We're given that, there's a truck and it's moving towards the right. The mass of the truck happens to be 6,000. So the mass of the truck happens to be 6,320 kilograms. The velocity, initial velocity of the truck is given as 10 meters per second. So that's what's going to happen. That's the information we're given. It's positive because it's moving towards the right. We want to find in part A the final velocity when the truck and the sports car collide with each other. So, they're going to collide and stick together. And we don't know what direction they'll go, but you can assume they're going towards one direction, and we want to find that final velocity when the collision happens. The second thing we want to find out, so this final velocity, we want to find the magnitude and direction. Those two things we want to find out: is it going to go to the left or will it go to the right? The second thing we want to find out in part B is the speed that the truck is moving. Um, so the initial speed of the truck, such that uh, they stop on collision. So another way of framing the problem would be, if they both have an initial the same momentum, when they're moving towards each other, they're gonna stop, and that's part B. And then in part C, we want to find what we call the change in kinetic energy for the two parts. So, what's the change in kinetic energy in part A, and then what's the change in kinetic energy in part B. So that's what we want to find out. And then the final thing they are asking is, which one is bigger? So is the change in kinetic energy in part A, uh, uh, is the change in part A greater than in part B? For example, that's one thing you wanna check. So that's the information we're given in the problem. And the first part of the problem is that we are going to compute the final velocity using the law of conservation of momentum. We get to see that the initial momentum equals to the final momentum. We can switch that because we are targeting the final velocity. So they're sticking together. So the mass of the truck plus the mass of the car and the final velocity is the same as the mass of the truck and the initial velocity of the truck plus the mass of the car times the initial velocity of the car. And so, moving things around, we see that the final velocity is the initial momentum of the car plus the final momentum of the car over the sum of the two masses together. And so, we'll do this in the next page. So the final velocity becomes 6,320 kilograms times, that's the momentum of the truck, 10 meters per second, plus the momentum of the car, the sports car, times negative 15 meters per second. You want to divide that by the sum of the masses, which is 6,320 kilograms plus 1050 kilograms. And so, your final answer becomes 6.43 meters per second. And it's positive. So if you go back, we're looking for the magnitude and direction. So it means that the two vehicles will move towards the right with a common velocity of 6.43. So we'll say 6.43 meters per second. That's what's going to happen to that. The second part, you can see we wanted to find the speed such that we want to find the speed of the truck if they happen to collide and stop. So at what speed should the truck be moving so that they stop after collision? So we'll do that on the next page. So in terms of what we're seeing is we have a truck and then we have a car, and they were moving towards each other, they collide and then they stop. So if they collide and stop, that just means that the momentum, which is the mass of the truck, and the initial velocity of the truck has to be equal to the mass of the car and the initial velocity of the car. So we don't know what this velocity is, but we can solve it. We put those two together. Remember, this is the outcome when they stick to each other. It means their momentums are the same. And so this turns out to be the mass of the car is 1050 kilograms, and its initial velocity towards the left is negative 15 meters per second, and the mass of the truck is huge. It's 6,320 kilograms, and that just means that the new velocity happens to be negative 2.49 meters per second. It's gonna be moving towards the left. So if you go back, we were saying, what's the speed such that they're gonna stop? That's what you're looking for. Speed has no magnitude. Well, speed has a magnitude, no direction. So it's just gonna be 2.49 meters per second. That's the speed of the truck if they have to stop. If they have to stop when they collide, so it means that the in terms of velocity, the truck will be moving that way, okay, before they stop. And that just comes from the arrangement or organization of the problem. The last part of the problem, which is part C, we're going to do that in the next page. And we're saying that, what's the change in kinetic energy in the two parts? Okay, what's the change in kinetic energy? Remember, this is what happened in part A. So change in kinetic energy is the final kinetic energy of the system minus the initial kinetic energy of the system. The final kinetic energy of the system, remember, when they collide, they stick to each other. So that's mc and v final squared minus the initial, which is before they stick to each other. This is the initial momentum of the truck, and then plus, we need a parenthesis there just to make our life easier, plus the initial momentum of the car, like that. And so when we plug in the numbers, we get 1/2 6,320 kilograms, plus the mass of the car is 1050 kilograms, times the final velocity that we computed was 6.43 meters per second. And if you can recall, it was actually positive, so 6.43 meters per second. We square that, and then we subtract 1/2. Mass of truck is 6,320 kilograms, and the velocity of the truck, initial velocity of the truck, you can see was the initial velocity was 10 meters per second. And you still have to square that because we're dealing with kinetic energy in this case. So 10 meters per second squared. And then also we have plus 1/2. Mass of the truck is 1050 kilogram. Velocity of the car is, if we go back, it was -15. So we have to include that meters per second squared. And so the change in part A would be positive 281.7 times 10 to the 3 joules, if you want to call that. That's the change in kinetic energy. They're asking us to compute that, find the change in kinetic energy of the system of the two in both the situations. So this is the change in kinetic energy for the first part, which is 281.7 times 10 to the 3 joules. The second part, we have to get the change in kinetic energy. Once again, it's the final minus the initial kinetic energy. They stick together, so the final kinetic energy is 0 joules. And we want to find the initial kinetic energy before they stick together. So 1/2 mt vt initial squared plus 1/2 mc vc initial squared. Those are the initial and final momentum in that case. So we have 1/2 times the mass of the truck, 6,320 kilograms. Always good habit to have the units there. Initial velocity of the truck. Remember, this is the velocity that's going to make them stop when they collide with each other. And then this is plus 1/2. The mass of the truck is 1050 kilograms. The initial velocity in that case was negative 15 meters per second squared. When you simplify that, you get negative 137.7 times 10 to the 3 joules. That's the change in kinetic energy in the second case. And so we can conclude that, as they were asking as part of the problem, if you go back, you see that the change in kinetic energy in the first case is greater than in the second case. So in terms of magnitude, so we'll say the magnitude of kinetic energy in part A is greater than in part B. Okay. Hope you enjoyed the problem. A couple of steps going on. The first part, we're finding the final velocity when they stick together, 6.43 meters per second. The second part, we're finding the speed of the truck, the ideal speed of the truck for them to stop, 2.49 meters per second for the truck. This is the velocity of the initial velocity of the truck, as we call it. Well, actually, this is the initial velocity of the truck. And then, you can change that to speed. Speed is a scalar quantity. And then finally, you compare the energies in part A and B, and you can see that the energy in part A is bigger. Hope you enjoyed the problem. Feel free to ask any questions, and have a wonderful day. Okay, thanks. Bye.